with Sarah Jones is none other than Sarah Jones. Good morning, Sarah. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. What a mess.
It's so frustrating. I'm gonna let you go
so
first.
Angry.
I am too.
Okay.
I am too.
I'm listening to your callers, and I totally get you're also right, before I get to breaking that down, because I think that there's, looking at this politically in terms of what it means for the Democrats is very different than looking at it personally, what it means for the people and for their cost.
Right.
And but those two things should be the same, and they are not, and that's the fundamental problem. But let's go back to these people. Let's get right into it, because, I've just been so angry like you. I didn't really sleep last night. What a betrayal of, after this historic protest and historic election where Democrats flipped districts all over this country that were dominated by Republicans, sometimes for 100 years. And what do these people do? But why did they do this? I heard you talking about a lot of that and kind of people having questions. What it looks like to me is very basic. It's their own self-interest and the interest of their district. And if you look at like Senator Kaine, for example, Virginia's full of federal workers. So, he thinks he's doing that. Look at Fetterman, my senator here, full of, I don't know what happened to him after he got elected, but he really changed from the way he operated here in Pennsylvania and turned into this. He thinks he's doing getting ready for a presidential run. I don't know who he thinks is going to vote for him, but he's got that cinema mansion self-delusion where he thinks that if he moves more and more to the right, he'll win a presidential election. Well, who's going to vote for him? This is what I always say to these Democrats. Who is going to vote for you? Look what happens when Democrats do not center themselves on their own base. They had... if you look at Obama's election and you look at Biden's election, the base, when it shows up, is huge.
It's massive. It's
massive. So talk to those people. That's all you've got to do. And talk to those people and stop, catering to special interests. It is not difficult to get that message through. Now, is it difficult though? This brings up, the problem that I know you're talking about. I heard you talking about it, and it is really frustrating because we can't fix it right now, which is that a lot of the people that are in office right now need to go. Mm-hmm. They are beholden to special interests, and all you have to do is go look at Open Secrets who donated to them, and then you will find out why they are voting this way. And frankly, I've been doing this for 15 years. I have been championing institutionalism and slow but steady change, which is, has historically always been the change that stayed, right? So it's pragmatic, that those are the things, and that's how we build towards more and more progress. But as all of that was going on in the background, since Obama, during Obama, well, that's not even true. They started that. Republicans have been so extreme. They started that way before that. But let's just go to Obama when they really showed themselves to be what they are now.
Because of the Tea Party. Keep going.
The Tea Party, exactly. The extremism of Republicans made being pragmatic more and more impossible for Democrats, because they are always facing... Democrats are basically the abused victim in a relationship with an abuser. And so right now they've got this, we'll let you have a vote, honey, if you just come home soon. Just come home now. And then later, I won't hurt you anymore. And I might let you have a vote. Of course, that's a big fat lie. And anyone with a brain can see that. But here we are, because, these 8 Democrats are looking after their own self-interest. And that's, I just, when you look at recent polling, 78% of Americans and nearly 60% of Republicans support extending the ACA tax credits.
Yeah. It's Sarah, there's so many The analogy you just referenced as it relates to the abused relationship, and nobody take that analogy from Sarah or me commenting on it the wrong way. We respect that that's a reality for some people in the real world, but that there's a message to be put out there about Democrats sometimes do perform that way, and in this moment, to a couple of things you said, there needs to be some change structurally with Democrats in terms of who's in leadership roles. But we got to keep in mind something, that people in states and districts vote for the people that they voted for. And so until voters in certain communities decide to not vote for that person, then we're going to, you know what I mean? This is where as a pragmatic person, I struggle with that because I'm a sledgehammer person at the same time. I'm like, we want Democrats that are going to come in and knock over some tables and let it be known that they're not going to apologize for it. And so this is where the structural part of the Democratic machine has got to change, because we have to put people forward who are going to be pragmatic and knock over tables at the same time. I believe we can do that. And so right now, that's sort of what in many people's minds is missing. And last Tuesday, and this is what I thought you and I are going to be able to talk a lot about today, said that's a strategy that's going to work going forward. And it's one, to your point about it'll be lasting because people can trust that the electorate can trust that they put people in office that knocked over tables and got stuff done at the same time. So my thinking is this, Sarah. It's the question that drives me. How do we go forward? What's in this? What did the Dems get? We know right now, and I've had a number of comments from folks on social media this morning, as well as that have texted me and emailed me, that the pragmatic part of this is the time of the year that we're in, or that has to be considered, is the time of the year that we're in. And so many people are concerned about this holiday season, travel season, and all those things. And this is not excuse language for the votes. I want to know. I personally want to know. One of the senators is from Illinois, Durbin, but there's others from other areas that are not. I want to know why they all voted the way in which they did. I think it was Shaheen that stepped up and has spoken. But I think that the American people need to know, the Democrats who supported, Democratic voters need to know why they did, because without that answer, it's going to be perceived by so many people that they just caved and that they are traitors. And I think that the message and the visuals and the optics are important here, that they can't do with these one-off. They got to collectively come in, hold a press conference, maybe led by Schumer, to say, here's why we did this. We know the risk. And if they don't do that, Sarah, it's going to make, I think, the perception problem even bigger. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I just don't think it's going to work. The problem is that they have given Republicans, they have proven that Democrats never need to be listened to when they say they're not going to do something. This was the only time Democrats have really stood up to Republican pressure. Republicans are always shutting down the government, right, and then Democrats always come and clean it up. And Republicans have come to rely on that. And this was the only time they were really starting to flip out a little bit, because Democrats weren't coming to fix their mess.
Right.
And what one has been very, like, when I talked about personal versus political, one of the issues, sorry, my dog is, there's somebody outside. One of the issues right now is going to be how are Democrats, and I don't agree with this, but I'm just talking about politically and strategically, how do they run? You really can't run on, hey, we tried to save your health care, but some of us betrayed everyone.
Yeah.
That will only work with people who really pay attention to politics. It isn't going to work with the rest of the people. We've seen how those people vote. We've seen how easy they are to manipulate by, with stupid slogans. And so I think what is going to resonate with everyone is that Democrats broke without getting what they said was their chief demand, the extension of these ACA subsidies. That's what is going to resonate with everyone. and their own base feels very betrayed by this. So how are they going to rouse support? That is my. I look at this stuff from, and just to go back to the abuse thing, I am not undermining in any way abuse victims. I've written about this constantly, that is the dynamics in abusive relationships. Of course, Donald Trump would be perpetuating that dynamic and inflicting that on people because he is an abuser. Yeah. And it is a horrible thing to witness. And I worry every day about people who have been victims of abusive relationships, because everything that's happening in Washington, D.C. is triggering all of that stuff.
And it is very much like that right now. And that's why, I wanted to be clear that people understand and understood where you and I are coming from in using that analogy. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Sarah Jones. It's Monday morning, and we're trying to hammer this out. Sarah, listen, one of the big things the point you just made, and this is where, I sit in this and just go, okay, the everyday person may not get this. I agree with you there that this is where the struggle is that the conversation in the political, hallways, whether they be elected officials, journalism, on and on, radio shows, podcasts, is going to look at this one way, and then people who are regular everyday citizens may look at it differently. And I think that's where the disconnect is going to be right now. And unfortunately, Republicans are going to ride on this as a victory. But and that's the part that I meant earlier when I talked about momentum. Last week, we snatched a lot of momentum in the game. And that is my other concern about this, is that momentum that we got last week. Now, we don't have to let that happen. But again, we're talking about maybe two different groups of people. Those who are participate like we do, and those who participate as regular everyday voters that are not, marinating in this stuff all the time. So I guess that's the basis of why I say that messaging right now is incredibly important, because those folks need to be they need to be made aware. How they accept it, if they accept it, is another story. But I think that to not do that would be yet another failure that I don't want to see these Democrats make. I don't know if I'm right or wrong in that. But I do feel that you're right. What I will say is that I know you're right about that disconnect from the everyday voting person is definitely at risk.
And to go back to the strategic point that I was making earlier about, how are Democrats going to campaign on this? What Senator Chris Murphy said, this makes Trump stronger, basically, and not weaker. And Trump was being weakened by this. He is being weakened by this shutdown. He is being weakened by that election. He is being weakened by the protest. And so what those 8 Democrats just did was embolden him. And to go now, I will wrap this back up to the abuse thing, because those dynamics are so important to understand. You cannot appease an abuser. They will never give what they promise they are going to give. If they somehow with the abuse dynamic, the abuser does the abusive thing. They take away health insurance. They are going to kill 50,000 people, 50,000 Americans. Then they blame the victim for that. So they're blaming Democrats. Democrats are out there trying to hold the line, and they're saying, hey, we're trying to stand up for these people who are going to lose their health care. And then the media blames Democrats for the shutdown. So if you look at every angle, Democrats are getting pressure. But who was keeping them in line? The people. The people were keeping them in line. And I am not sure that, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I am not sure, and I'm not here to defend any Democrat, but I am not sure that Chuck Schumer was in on this. I think that he sort of got the message, that they needed to stand strong. And I don't see what he would get. Of course, I could be wrong. We don't know. This is just me working down all the different paths. What do they get by caving like this? It's not good for them. This doesn't look good for any of them. So, what those now the other thing we haven't looked at, because a lot of those people are retiring, right? A lot of the eight. What you're dealing with, this kind of mob boss in Trump. You can't tell me that he has not offered these people something. That's a possibility too. That is how he operates. And that is how he gets that is how he gets witnesses. He is always out there dangling stuff, which he never gives to people. And somehow, again, people never seem to learn. But you're not going to get what he promises you. It's not going to happen. Yeah. He is always going to take and then get you to capitulate, take what you gave him, and then move on to the next victim. That's how he operates. So,
well, it's true. And that's the next. That is part of this conversation. I'm getting so many texts that are asking questions and asking me to ask you questions. I think one of the big things here, Sarah, is that a lot of people feel that when we use the language the Democrats caved, is that the ACA was bigger than the reinstatement of SNAP and the reinstatement of federal workers' employees, because the ACA impacts a larger number of people. And to that end, this is where I think a lot of people are just trying to figure out what was the right move. Did we lose our leverage and our momentum by having 8 senators say they're going to vote to reopen the government versus vote to protect the ACA? That's at its core is the baseline question. And what we know is right now, and this is where it's a struggle. Right now, we know that there are people who are hurting because of the shutdown that's lasted 40 days. And I think a lot of people have said, well, if they've gone for 40 days, they could have held out longer. And there's a part that I think we all have to be willing to slow down and ask this question. To what end? Is it how, and I know that the answer may many people be very simple. That was to protect the ACA. I get that. In the meantime, there are people who are hurting right now. So it's when I hear that, I'm not going to pretend like I have the solution or the singular answer, because I know that either side of this is filled with a tremendous amount of cruelty and pain, which circles back to what you just said about the mentality of a mob boss, is to keep hurting and find the next area to hurt. That's where we are. I have to take the deep breath of saying, so how do we go forward? And how do we actually get here? This is, like Sean said this earlier from Politics Bar, this is in the laps of Republicans. It still is. Even though the 8, quote unquote, may have let folks down, voted in their own interest, didn't have anything to lose, all the labeling that we can give them, which is accurate, may have caved, what Schumer knew or did not know. At the end of the day, we have to ask the question, so now how do we go forward? And we're not going to vote those 8 out. Durbin's leaving, and there'll be a replacement. But the other 7, we're not going to vote them out. So we've got to look past them now, I believe, and say, what do we do to make sure that we get the things that they say that they voted for in this vote? I think that if we don't do that, because now we have a different standard. Meaning, think about it. They said they're saying what we're hearing is that they did it for this reason, X. So now we have to hold them to account for that, because the needle moved. If we don't do that, that's where we, again, lose momentum. So who's responsible for that? I think we in part are. And I think the other elected officials are equally responsible to their colleagues to say, you voted for this, so now you got to help us get this done. I don't know, maybe I'm oversimplifying it.
No, I think that, what I would say the way to go forward from this is to double down on the pressure. And I would say go to these people's offices, like Senator Fetterman's office isn't even answering the phone here. So you can't call and say, this is, why are you killing 50,000 Americans? So people need to be at their offices and protesting outside. And that needs to be relentless. That needs to be happening every day. And it's easy, to say, oh, we don't like this, but they've got to see it. And they're trying to hide from that. Now, as to your point about what what they got or allegedly got. First of all, the things that they got are things that Donald Trump destroyed and
Yeah.
Republicans destroyed, right?
Right.
They are the
Getting
ones
back, I guess.
that yeah, so exactly. And that point, this is exactly, and I keep going back to this abuse thing because that is the dynamic.
It is.
You're
right.
not, you can't, you're not
If I
getting
act
something
right,
back.
it's like if
I act right out,
oh, yeah,
yes.
right. Yeah. And
That never works.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. And so you're getting back something. They'll just redo that again. And by the way, they needed those people back. They had already admitted they had to rehire people. So
that's why
you're
going
just
back to
giving
what you
them
said
cover.
about the selfish part of this, that's where,
Yeah.
it is. And Sean talked about this too, to some extent earlier when he called in, us cleaning up after the those who are being deemed as traitors. We have to go and clean this up, and we have to clean it up because they didn't realize what you just said, which is this is the the parallel to an abusive relationship, and but it's in politics. It's not a personal relationship; it's a political abusive relationship. And
But I'm afraid they don't care, and that's
yeah,
these senators don't care. They literally don't care. They obviously don't care. 50,000 people are going to die. They don't care, and I think that's really a problem. How out of touch do you have to be to not care? And zooming out, yes, this is on Republicans. Republicans are the ones who are in charge of government. They could have redone these ACA subsidies, renewed them very easily. They could have kept the government open if they had passed appropriation bills, like is their constitutional duty.
Yep.
They choose not to do all of that, and somehow all of that slides down onto Democrats. Democrats have done a really incredible job of holding the line.
And I just got this text I got to read to you. This is about the thing I keep talking about with momentum. He was tremendously booed at the Commanders game. So clearly we have, and I don't want to, listen, I still believe we have, and I don't think I'm crazy, y'all. We still have momentum on our side because those victories did not go away. They literally did not go away because of the vote yesterday. Sure, we won those races. We won all those in all those locations. That still is a reality. And for us to skip over and say, well, we lost some momentum, we didn't lose it entirely. We may have lost some of it, but we still have to keep going forward, because if we don't and say, well, because of these 8 senators, we can't do anything, that's irresponsible on our part. And I don't think that we should allow that to happen. I can't accept that. It's to put a sports analogy to it. You got momentum and then you blow a play and then you blow another play. That doesn't mean you still can't win the game. And I'm a believer in that. We have to be willing to say they effed up. Okay, now we got to, unfortunately, to Sean's point earlier, we have to fix this.
Well, and the other thing is what I think Democrats have not, to your analogy, they haven't lost the game. What is going to happen is this is the month people are renewing their Obamacare coverage, and they're seeing those prices. Senator Tammy Duckworth sent us an email saying people are telling her their coverage is going up by $30,000 a year. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't afford $30,000 a year for insurance.
And whether you could afford it or not, that's the thing we have to remember. It's not if you can afford it or not. It shouldn't be the case. So I always take that off the table. It doesn't matter if one can afford it. You could spend that $30,000 doing, maybe you have it, but you could spend that on something else, like to better your community, better your children's family's lives. That's how I always go down this path. We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to. Sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but that's right, because it should be a right. And also, let's not forget that the only reason that they claim there isn't money for this is because they gave yet another tax cut to the wealthy. And they're shoveling all of this, his tariffs and the tax cut for the wealthy, all of that is coming down on everyone else. And that is what all of this is about.
Yeah.
And Democrats did not vote for that stuff. They don't represent that, and to give them their due, like that is not on them. And to your, I think the larger point that people are concerned about, I don't think this is going to stop the momentum that Democrats have against this regime. I think it's problematic. I think it's going to be very difficult to campaign on this versus what it would have been.
Here's the thing. Fortunately, we got, this is going to sound crazy, and then I'm going to let you go. But fortunately, this didn't happen 2 weeks ago because the elections could have turned out differently. And that's why when I pull back the lens and go, okay, thank God, timing wise, we got that done first. And now we got to deal with the cleaning up this mess. I love what Sean said from Politics Bar earlier about we got to clean up the mess from our own team. But that's the mess that we got to clean up. Sarah, there's so much more to talk about, as always, when we are together. So my thank you to you is large. I appreciate you taking the time and challenging the norm. I mean, I commend you for that because that's what we have to do. And that's why I have so much respect for your writing and the work that you do because you challenge the norm every single day. So thank you, Sarah Jones.
Thank you so much.